Maoist Rebel News fans, this is one of those instances where conservatives and liberals toe the same line without even realizing it. In a recent video by the Young Turks, they took on Bill O'Reilly and the supposed investigation that took place undercover against an abortion place. And the problem here is both the conservative and the liberal angle both toed the same lie on China. Here's the report by Fox News.
You may know about the pro-life group Live Action. It sets up stings across the country involving abortion-related matters. Now, last month, Live Action entered a Planned Parenthood clinic in Austin, Texas, and spoke to a counselor there about possibly aborting a fetus if it turned out to be a girl.
I see that you say that you want to terminate if it's a girl, so are you just wanting to continue the pregnancy in the meantime, or what?
Yeah, I think that would be the plan.
I've had 2 abortions and I have 4 kids.
Okay, so all right.
So I mean, again,
yeah.
From experience,
yeah.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with being pregnant immediately.
Okay.
Afterwards.
All right. So then I'd want to schedule, try to schedule an ultrasound with an OB around then, and then I would still be able to come back here for a termination if it was a girl.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
And I hope that you do get your boy.
All right, so my question is, are we now China in this country? If Planned Parenthood is advising women to abort because of gender choice, then we are China. And you should remember that the next time a politician or famous person endorses Planned.
No, America is not like China. China is not even like China. There is no government policy in China that says girl fetuses have to be aborted. There is no such thing. Female fetuses are being targeted, but it is not a government policy. It comes from a very ignorant, backward, Confucian-like belief that female babies are worth less than male babies. This is not a government policy. This is just backward, bloody ignorance. Now, this is not a government policy. Nobody is forcing people to do this. And of course, typically, the liberals just completely look the other way on China and just, let the slander slide because they're still anti-communist, and the Young Turks still think that China is a communist country despite the rapid increasing abundance of capitalism. Now, this goes more to the complete lies that are over the one-child policy. I don't actually support the one-child policy because I think it's the wrong way to handle a real problem. It's an anti-material way of handling a problem, and it is very typical of the capitalist reforms in China. But I am interested in the truth, not in slandering people. For example, only 35.9% of the population in China is actually subject to the one-child policy, and some groups are completely exempt from having to follow it anyway. Rural couples, ethnic minorities, and parents without any siblings themselves, and people in Hong Kong. They are all completely exempt from having to go through with the one-child policy. And as usual, as everybody seems to ignore it, the one-child policy began in 1978. Mao died in 1976. He literally had nothing to do with the one-child policy. But of course, as usual, he always gets the blame for shit like this. Now, they didn't say that in the video, but in all the other places, it's always Mao who gets the blame for this, even though he was dead and had nothing to do with it. Now, there's also a very typical capitalist unfairness to this. They complain, well, government officials don't seem to have to follow it, and, rich people are frequently exempt from it. No kidding. You mean in capitalism, rich people live by a different set of rules, and their tools in the government also live by different rules? Are you telling me in a system based on personal wealth that wealthy people don't have to play by the same rules as everybody else? That's almost ridiculous to even mention. Okay? It's capitalism. Of course the rich have an advantage. Now, under socialism, the population problem, the overpopulation problem, had a completely different way of dealing with it. Mao said, abortions and contraceptives, free or subsidized, depending on where you lived. The population control was dealt with offering people contraceptives in order to prevent the pregnancies to begin with. And then if that didn't work, then abortion was made available and free. And then, unlike now, Female fetuses were not targeted out because they were thought to be of less value. That was one of the great advancements of the Cultural Revolution, was to defeat this idea that women were inferior and had less value. Women were brought from being domestic servants to being heads of what were supposedly male-dominated fields, both in construction, technology, science, all kinds of fields. It was completely against the regressive idea that women are inferior. It was completely ridiculous. Now, however, we have seen that idea regress back. Patriarchal marriage laws that have come through in China in the past year, women doing this ridiculous thing where they're deliberately infecting themselves with worms so that they'll lose weight to be more attractive to get jobs. I mean, that kind of utter inhuman patriarchal BS would never have flown in revolutionary China. That was completely ridiculous. This has all come about as a result of the restoration of capitalism. This is just simply ridiculous. But as usual, if these things happen in China today, under capitalist China, it's of course communism's fault. And communism always takes the blame for these things. It's absolutely ridiculous. And of course Mao. Of course Mao, who died, what, like 30 years? Still gets the blame for all these things, and it's just the same old ridiculous garbage. If China was really so bad, and in some areas it is really bad, but if it was really bad in this area, it wouldn't be necessary to actually lie. Nothing shows a pathetic inability to make an adequate criticism of something like having to lie. And to even go so far as to blame communism for something capitalism even actually did shows the incredibly dishonest, pathetic nature of the people who oppose China. There are real reasons to oppose the government, but not these stupid ones.